Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, and transformational coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs who are stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the coach's alchemist, and on a mission to help coaches and entrepreneurs amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible, leveraging podcasts and our million-plus audience over on the Gnostic TV network. Today, we're chatting with Patricia Stepler. Patricia is a performance results coach and is dedicated to helping business owners and entrepreneurs develop confidence and entrepreneurial thinking to unlock their full potential. With a background in education and extensive experience in corporate training, Patricia brings a unique approach that combines mindset, strategy, and performance. Welcome to the show, Patricia. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate you having me.
So I'm going to ask you the big question. What's the most significant thing, in your opinion, we can do as an individual to make the greatest impact on how the world is going?
I think there's a lot of things going on in the world and we can't control them, but we can control ourselves. And so I think the biggest impact we can make on the world is to realize what we're in control of and to not allow the outside world to impact our lives and realize that we create our own reality. And so if we can just focus on the things we are in control of, which is our own thinking, then we can, sort of eliminate some of that that's going on in the world and actually help others in the same way. And that, how can we get others to just focus on what they're doing and how their thought process goes? Because a lot of what's going on, we can't control.
Right. And no amount of getting upset about it is going to make any difference. They just don't care what our
No,
opinion
you're
is.
exactly right. Yeah. We
So
can
this,
control our own thoughts.
yes, yes. And this kind of dovetails into what you do when you help people with the things that you help them with. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
And
How you
so,
help people?
so I came to realize that, through my own experiences, through, teaching, through my own children, through working with different corporate groups, that we have so much more potential than we realize. And just to tap into that and to start learning that we can do so much more than we think. And a lot of it all starts with our own subconscious paradigms or habitual thought patterns that we have. And when we learn to change our thought patterns into believing that we can do things instead of thinking we can't do things, we start to take those limitations off. And a lot of that goes back to what I was just saying about living, from what we can control and our own thinking. And when we start to realize the power, this is kind of funny, but the other day, my husband and I were talking because he's playing in a musical, Fiddler on the Roof. And I said, you know what? I played in the pit orchestra and Fiddler on the Roof as a ninth grader. And it just hit me at that moment. I go, why were there no high school kids that could play better than I was at the time? And yet I never gave myself credit for the fact that maybe I was, at ninth grade was better than a senior in high school. I don't know. But, sometimes we tend to limit our thinkings. And that's such a small thing. But how many times do we do that during the day, thinking that somebody else can do something we can't? And it's probably not true. We're quite capable.
And we tend to minimalize the things that we really are good at
Yeah,
because they're so easy for us. It's like,
exactly.
there was a time when it wasn't really easy for us. And because everybody starts at zero, and I think some people have like a natural affinity for things. And if you can find your natural affinity for something and really press into it, I think that's like it's the meld of your superpower. And but you need to own what you've spent years in some cases
Right.
really getting good at. Like,
And you're so right about that, because when it comes easy to us, then we think everybody else can do it too. And that's not true. And yet then we also have to flip on the other side. Just because somebody else is good at something doesn't mean we can't learn to be just as good at it. I know,
and
like, just technology was an issue for me, maybe 10 years ago. And now it's like, I don't fear any of it because I know I've done other things. And so if it's something new, you can figure it out.
And you can also make the determination, do you want to figure it out, or do you want to hire somebody who has already figured it out? And do you want to hire
Mhm.
them to either A, do it for you or teach you the shortcuts? Because somebody that's an
Right.
expert at something knows how to get the result faster and easier and without all the rabbit trails that you're going to go down when you're just learning something.
Right. And that is a decision you have to make. Which is it, or is it somewhere in between?
Mhm.
Do you want to know the basics so that if you need, you can do it, but allow somebody else to, do most of the work so that you can focus on what you're really good at.
Yeah. They have those moms out there for tech geeks. Well, that's because they're so focused on this
Yeah.
one thing and they're really good at it. But they're really good at it because they don't have to do all of the everyday things, like your laundry and picking up after yourself and the dishes and preparing food. And there's a lot of things that people do every day, moms especially.
Mm-hmm.
Moms think that they're just like nothing, but really moms are the engine that drives the world. I had a
Yes.
friend who once told me, her husband was like, I'm so much better than you, or something like that. He's not her husband anymore, but she's
I
like,
wonder
well,
why.
sure, I could be all that in a bag of chips if I didn't have to like do live my life and yours too, or
Hmm.
something to that effect. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true though. You
Yeah.
know,
And being a mom it's a really important job. A lot of moms have jobs outside of the home too.
Mhm.
And, but raising your kids, there's nothing I think more important than raising your own children.
Really, they're what's going to keep the world going.
Exactly.
If you don't do your job well, then it's just going to be a problem for future generations, if there will even be
Right.
future generations. Most people don't think about that, but it's
Yeah.
the struggle's real, man.
Yeah.
So, did you see yourself as a reflection of what you're doing now?
No, not at all. So, yeah, so when I was younger and in school, I always thought everybody in my family was better than I was. And so I had a really poor self-image of myself. And that took me a while to overcome. And I did personal development pretty much my entire adult life. And, I started to see things that I wanted for my children to be different than what it was for me, which at the time I didn't understand what I was doing, but I was just shifting the paradigm. And, but I never saw myself doing what I'm doing today. And I probably would not be here had I not had, Charlie Jones, he was an author and speaker that I heard one time, well, multiple times. And he would say, you are the same today as you are tomorrow, except for the books you read and the people you meet. And of course, you can meet people through podcasts, you can meet people through, videos or whatever. But it's so true. And that's how you change yourself is through the people you meet, the mentors that you have. And I had some great mentors along the way. And then the books you read. And so I think that got me to where I am today. Plus, I was like, what do I have to do after my children grew up and were out of the house? I was like, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because I'd been living so much of my life through my kids, and because I felt it was really important. And so I looked for things I wanted to do. And about the same time, my son happened to manifest this college scholarship for himself. And I'm like, how did you do that? Which sent me on my own journey.
Hey all, I'm Jill Hart. We all know that legal matters can be costly and stressful. Finding the right representation and dealing with high retainers and hourly bills adds up fast. But what if I told you there was a way to have legal insurance, just like your health or auto insurance, Well, Legal Shield has leveled that playing field. From just $29.95 a month, you get access to lawyers for personal legal matters, from traffic tickets to real estate issues or even trust matters. Help is just a tap away on your phone. Call or text 435-764-0875 and use the code JillLegal or start your journey to legal protection today.
And, so then I just had to help other people to realize the potential they had, because I started to see that I hadn't been using my full potential, and none of us really do, but we all have so much more we can offer to the world than what we have and what we're showing today.
I think that's so amazing. And a lot of us share similar journeys, but your point about who you meet and what you read, it changes everything because it causes you to think about things
Yes.
differently. And to have different questions, and it allows you to be curious about stuff rather than cemented in a position because you don't have time to think about what you think about that. And really, the way you change your thoughts is to think differently about your thoughts.
Right. And a lot of people don't take time to really think. So when you read something and it makes you stop and think, you hear something and you think, about it, that gets into those deep thoughts. And that's when you start to change your perspective. The more you're aware of things, the more you learn, the more information you gather, the more you can form, your thoughts and just spending time thinking about who you are and what you want, because most of us spend more time planning our dinner than we do, our lives.
And it shows.
It does.
So how do you help people? Do you do one-on-one coaching? Do you do group coaching? Do you
I
do
do both.
courses?
I'll do one-on-one, I'll do group, I do some, like corporate training type things. So I do a variety of things, but it's always focused on how can we shift our thinking to get better results, and how can I take somebody that has an idea and show them how to go about getting it? Because when you get an idea and something that you desire, you also are capable of obtaining it, but you have to follow a certain path and you have to keep really focused and belief in what you're doing, and you have to take action. And sometimes people miss some of those steps along the way, and then they get upset because they don't get the results. That's the way I used to be. I would think about it, but I didn't always do the action, and then I'd say, why doesn't it happen?
And there's a difference between knowing what all the steps are and implementing them in the right order.
Yes.
And timing has to do with it, and accountability, and
Mhm.
having somebody that says, oh, you just got to squish over here. You're getting too close to that edge.
Yeah.
You're gonna fall off.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't want that to happen but
Yeah.
just one little twist in your body and you'll be right where you need to be in the sweet spot, and you're going to get what you want. But you can't
Yeah.
see it when it's just you. And that's where I
You're
think there's
exactly right.
huge magic in groups and community, and just being with other people. As a solopreneur, it's really easy to want to just like huddle down in your office and do all the stuff, the easy stuff that doesn't require you to interact with other human beings. But really, it's in the connections where energy exchange happens, and monetary exchange is just a different form of money exchange or of energy exchange. You exchange your skills, energy, and education to somebody, and they give you currency in return, which is just energy because it doesn't really exist.
Right. And, when you're talking about energy, everything's energy. I
It
mean,
is
everything's all
energy.
around us. And, it's having that energy in our life and shifting our energy that really gets us to the level of where we want to be. And so often people miss that. And they just go through this kind of static life, and same old every day. And there's never any shift of energy.
Mhm. And that's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Because life is meant to be enjoyable and fun. And when we drag it down into the negative,
And
it's
play
not
a little
fun.
more and
Yeah.
imagine.
Yes.
We used to get told, don't be daydreamers. Daydreamers are bad. But,
Yeah.
it's the daydreamers that make change happen in the world.
You
It's
know,
the people that say, what if?
I remember this really funny story when I was teaching school, and it was when I started to understand about daydreaming, because a lot of times teachers will say, stop daydreaming, pay attention. And I remember this one student, and I just tended to walk around the room, if somebody was, doing something, talking or whatever. And I could tell that this child was not paying any attention to me. I don't know where he was. And I kept getting closer, and the other kids, and they knew what I was doing, and they were kind of like snickering. And he was still like he was in his own little world. And finally, I just kind of, got close to him, and I said, I don't know where you are, and I'm sure it's wonderful, but can you just come back for a few minutes? And that was to me telling him it's okay to use your imagination, to daydream. I want you to do that, just not right now.
Yeah.
But that was so much better than saying, pay attention, you're not listening, you're not, that just wasn't my
It gives
style,
them
really.
permission to explore, but it also gives
Yeah.
them boundaries of, when it's appropriate and when it's
Yeah.
not, which is, it's an important skill. We
Yes, it is.
there are times when we do have to focus, and there are times when we need to set aside to be able to just let our imaginations run wild and
Right.
go pet the
Well, think about
unicorns.
this. If we didn't use our imaginations, all the inventions, the music we have, that wouldn't be here.
Spider
Those are
goats.
all people who use their imaginations to create. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to use our imaginations to create.
Yeah. And you get some really crazy things. We have spider goats. They are a thing. They milk them, and they use the spider silk that they distill out of the milk to make Kevlar and a lot of medical
Oh my goodness.
things. But it was DNA splicing, and
Wow.
they do in vitro fertilization. But who thought of that?
Yeah. Yeah,
So I know you have a free workbook. It's
I do.
go from step to unstoppable. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so I find that, a lot of people in various areas of their lives, they can be stuck. It could be financial, could be job related, could be health wise, it's spiritual. However, they feel that they're stuck. And so this book like goes through what I call 3 steps to really get unstuck and to become unstoppable, because that's what we want to be. We want to get to the point where we are so excited about life that we are unstoppable. So it just goes through, thinking bigger, to create that bigger vision and really clarify your goal, and then to do more, because if we don't take the actions, we're still going to remain stuck. And then we also have to become somebody different. And that's like building your confidence and becoming the person you need to be in order to achieve that big goal. Because the person you are today has achieved the goals that you have for today. But to go to a really high level, you have to become somebody different. So it just goes through some information there, plus some really good thought-provoking questions to get you to think about your life and where you really want to take it.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank you,
Patricia.
Jill. It's been a
Um,
pleasure.
how can people get a hold of you?
They can reach out to me through social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way, or when, connect with downloading the workbook, and we can connect that way too.
Awesome. And we'll put the links in the show notes below. And thank you all for tuning in with us today. To learn more about Patricia and becoming unstoppable, visit patricia.creatingtopproducers.com/home. And we'll be putting that link in the show notes. If you have a podcast or are interested in starting one to get your message in front of our huge and active audience, be sure to reach out to us at support@heartlifecoach.com. We love to help spiritual entrepreneurs and coaches amplify their voice and monetize their mission, and offer a variety of ways to do this on the Gnostic TV network platform. Join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.